All right, so week 4, we finally have our first test. So let's talk about that real quick. Exam 1 is going to be on chapters 1 through 5. So just a quick review for that. Chapter 1 was the chapter that we did way back in the very first week. It was on the introduction chapter. Had a lot of terminology and a lot of vocabulary. I would encourage you to go back and review that because here's the way I think of chapter 1. Nothing that we talked about was like really, really hard or detailed, but it was just a lot of it. There was a lot of terms. There was a lot of different things that you needed to know. And even if it made sense at the time, it can be kind of overwhelming if you just looked at it once. If like 2 weeks ago was the last time that you looked at that, you really want to brush up on it and look at it again. All right. Note cards, I think I mentioned in the lecture video, note cards are a great way to tackle that chapter. But just study, brush up on that. Chapters 2, 3, and 4, that was the second week. And it was like a kind of a long lecture, but I split it up into several different parts. Chapter 2 was on chemistry and organic molecules. Chapter 3 was on the cell and all the different organelles. And then we talked about the cell membrane and diffusion and osmosis and things like that. Chapter 4 it was really short part at the very end, was on metabolism and cellular respiration and things like that. So that was a lot too. I really condensed it. Like usually that's a really, really long lecture that we do, and I tried to just cut out the parts and just focus on the stuff that you really needed to know, but it was still a lot, so go back and review that too. Chapter 5, hopefully that one's a little bit more fresh because we just did that last week. That was the tissue chapter. All right. So just a few things. Number 1, I mentioned when we were in class last week that the Learn Smart assignments, those are those bonus assignments you can find on the left. You need to finish those before the test because obviously it's studying for the test, so you need to do it before you take the test. So if you haven't done those yet, last chance, last call. There's one for Chapter 1 and one for Chapter 5. And those are worth 3 bonus points if you'll complete all of those questions. All right. So the test is around, I'm still working on like finalizing it, but it's going to be somewhere in the ballpark of 60 to 70 questions. It will be multiple choice and matching, so you'll just bubble in your answers on all these. I'll provide Scantrons. All you need to do is bring your pencils with you, and we're going to meet in room 114. So 114, if you remember lab last week, you walked in the lobby, you signed in, and then you turned left and went down that hall. 114 is on that hall. It's going to be a little bit earlier than where our lab room was. So we were in room 117. There was another lab room before that. The classroom before that was 114. All right, I'll be there a little early. I'll have the door open and I'll meet you and make sure everyone gets to the right place. But that's a pretty decent sized classroom. I'm going to have the desks spread out really far, so we'll be distanced and all that. So we're splitting up into 2 groups just like always. Group A is going to be Monday. Group B is going to be Wednesday. So just come on Monday if you're in Group A. It'll be regular class time, 8 o'clock. And the good news, this is like your reward for taking the test, is that the tests usually don't take a ton of time to do. It's I'm going to say 30, 40 minutes is the average. Probably less than that, honestly. So when you finish the test, that's all we're doing that day. We're not going to have any more assignments or finish lab, anything like that. So you'll just take the test, and that's it at the beginning of the week. Now, the only other thing you need to do this week is the tissue microscope slide drawings. That's the worksheet that I gave you in lab last week. That's going to be, I want you to do that this week if you haven't done it already. Some of you I know have done it already because you sent me a message and told me. So if that's the case, you got a really light week this week. But for everybody else, and you can see the instructions below this video, but go to the lab content, click on the tissue folder, and then watch that video and have the worksheet with you and just fill out the worksheet while you're doing that. Okay? So you got a couple options for turning this in. One, if you want to, you can just hang on to it and you can turn it in next week when we start having labs again. But, and here's what I would recommend if you're seeing this in time. If you will do the lab, the tissue drawing sheet, if you'll do that before the test, if you've got enough time and you're not cramming studying, if you'll do that before the test, you can turn it in to me on test day. You can just hand it in. You won't have to remember it later. The other thing is that tissue drawing, when you watch the video, I'm going to describe a lot of things about the tissues. And it's just a review. It's all stuff that we talked about in the Chapter 5 lecture video that you've watched already. But if you'll do that, it's kind of like studying a little bit. You might learn something that'll help you out on the test. Okay? So I think that's got it. If you have any questions about anything, let me know. Keep studying. Send me a message if you come across something that doesn't make sense to you, and I'll be glad to help you out with that too. But I will see you on whenever your test day is. And like I said, let me know if you need anything. Thanks.